So thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Shashi. Thank you, Jatin. And thank you, GACS, for having given this opportunity to speak amidst such a great group of professionals today. I'm glad that I am the first speaker who is going to get this opportunity, but at the same time, a little bit of worry. 15 minutes, I am sure that my time starts now. And on top of that, I have chosen a topic which I'm sure that it will be there in front of you. A topic that people can talk about, and we can have a workshop, a full day workshop, and still there'll be a lot more left. So with that, I'll just come on to my first slide. Not this. Yeah. So this is the world that we live in today. And that is the reason why I chose this topic, because for us, especially in a post-pandemic kind of an environment, I really thought that this would be the right topic on which we can, perhaps talk a little bit, exchange notes also. So what I'll try to do is, in the interest of time, I will just be running through a few slides very quickly. And maybe during the last 5 minutes, we might get some time to, have a little bit more interaction with each other. So anybody here in the audience who is not familiar with this term, VUCA, VUCA, you are not familiar. Thank you for being very open about it, because very few people raise that. And how many of you are really familiar with it? Will you raise your hands now? So I would request somebody to just come out with what does V stand for? Yes? Volatility. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that. And you? Uncertainty. Okay. C? Complexity. I can see the BSI team is the most active, because for them it is business. Okay, complexity. And A? Okay. So I think my job is done now. But still, since I've been given 15 minutes, I might as well go ahead. So this is a terminology which is not very recent. The concept per se from 1987, when these two gentlemen, one Mr. Warren and Burt, they came out, they coined this phrase. And it became more relevant after the collapse of the USSR, when the War College, US Army War College used this as a concept to really formulate their strategy in a kind of an environment where everything is absolutely chaotic. And chaos is the word that we all are very familiar with today, especially after the pandemic, where we have seen almost everything that we imagined could not happen has happened in the world. So these are the 4 terms that I used, and I'm sure that most of you, I saw only one hand raised when I asked whether people are familiar with it. But still, these are the 4 things, and all these are they all are very similar sounding words. And when you look about volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, all these things together give you a sense of chaos. Absolute, you feel lost when you look at all these terms, and when you imagine your business world with all these things hitting you simultaneously. But then at the same time, there would be a slight difference in each of this, the connotation of each and every word, which I have tried to put together out here. I think this is a little bit too verbose, so I'll go ahead a little bit more, So here, when you speak about volatility, it is about the speed of change. When fast-paced events happen. You can imagine your stock portfolio right now, what it is undergoing, to have a better sense about what I'm talking about. Okay. The next is uncertainty. And this is something that I think all of us, most of you who are facility managers, are already facing that uncertainty about when people start coming back to work, what is going to happen. When are they going to come back first? So that explains this very well. Coming on to next is complexity, where there are too many factors. Now, you as a facility head or a security head has been told, that you have to plan for people coming back to office. Now, there are so many factors that you are thinking about, and so many different things about which you have absolutely no clue. So when too much of things are happening at the same time, and it is very difficult for you to take a decision because of the number of factors that are there, pull and push factors that are happening. That is where complexity comes. And lastly, it is ambiguity. So ambiguity is what? It is a lack of clarity. Things are ambiguous, things are not clear, and you would like to really figure out a way through all those things. Now in this, I just pictorially try to depict, how, volatility will look, a low volatility kind of a situation, what you would find, and in a high situation, what it would be. And from what I said earlier, it becomes very, very clear, it is the speed of events and the rate at which things are happening that determines, how volatile a situation can get. Whereas when you are talking about certainty or uncertainty, it is, like high uncertainty, there may be multiple courses and you might not be able to really decide which path to take. So that is what it is all about. When you talk about complexity, you see the number of factors are there are multiple factors that are there, and you have to figure your way through all of them. And in ambiguity, it's only about, things are not clear, things are very vague, and you just don't know what to do. Now this is, you can see that all these things are available on internet, so you can go ahead, and that's why I'm not spending too much of time on this. But then this is a way in which you can try to put a positive spin around this VUCA and figure out what you need to do as a leader to find some solutions to the situation as it is. So when you're talking about a very volatile kind of a situation, it is your vision as a leader that really matters. When you are talking about the next one, it is understanding that really helps you in uncertainty. And in a complex kind of a scenario, it is the clarity that you as a leader would be able to give your team on how to tackle a particular scenario. And last is, in an ambiguous kind of scenario, it is how adaptable, how agile you are. Now, as a leader, any kind of a situation always gives you an opportunity as a leader to, bring out the best in yourself. So here again, it's about, as a leader, as a leadership and management skill, how you can tackle this kind of a scenario when you're faced with this kind of a situation. The first thing is how to implement. In implementation, how do you work with people? Decision making, again, you have to see, the complexity and uncertainty can be drivers for you as a leader to delve deeper into the situation and come up with some, way to tackle that kind of situation. Again, innovation and creativity is something which is there universally applicable. So how innovative you are and how creative you are when you are faced with this kind of a situation, that is what will determine the outcome. Searching for opportunities for better deals and opportunities instead of relying on individual will. So this again, any kind of a situation, a bad situation, always gives opportunities for leaders to come out. Like there is that saying that, it's a large ship which will survive a storm, a mightiest of storm. So similarly, if you are a good leader and you are able to do that, maybe ahead of the competition, you might be able to lead your team through if you are, looking for opportunities in this kind of scenario also. And finally, the team building and organization culture that you have. So normally an adversity tends to unsettle people, but then if you are a strong leader, you can stand in front and you can help them sail through that. A lot of challenges during the last 2 years where you have been hit by the pandemic. And today we live in an environment where so many things, I mentioned a list of things that are going wrong, but then you would know around you as we speak today, every moment, so many things are happening over which we don't have. So I would like you people to come out with what you feel as a facility head or as a facility manager. What do you feel the greatest challenge that confronts you now and how you would tackle it. Would anybody like to talk about it, please? You've got just 1 minute each because my time is already running out. Do I have to call somebody to speak or? Yeah, please.
The other day I was speaking to the Infosys head.
Yeah.
At the Pocharam campus, he was saying the demand versus supply of commercial cabs in the market, where Hyderabad needs about 2,500 vehicles a month, there's only 400 vehicles coming to the market. So against the demand versus supply, there's an 80-20 gap, right? So anybody who has done transport
We'll find that.
is going to have a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Shrikant. That's really a great example that has been given by me. As to how are you going to tackle it? Now suddenly there has been a void in the transportation sector, and then suddenly you have been asked to bring transport for a company, whatever. Any other example, please? Yeah, please.
I don't know if I can be audible.
You can take this, please.
So, the other problem that we generally face is where we don't have employees coming now, and that's perpetually, I think, in all the organizations.
Yeah.
We have 28 to 30%. So it's just simply not working in terms of running an organization where you want 24/7 lights and air on and all that. So that's one of the major problems that I think everybody will be facing.
So this post-camp pandemic office itself is something about which we all are, floundering. We don't know what is going to happen. All things that are going to come.
Another point, the pandemic is over, but the challenges are not over. So if you look at, I think all the facility managers are facing the manpower issue. Today, if you look at, we are in Hyderabad, we are not many dependent on the migrant employees who help us in the day-to-day operation. If you look at like many others, many states, they are still till today they are giving those freebies. Pandemic freebies are continuing. So the person who has gone to the village, native place, they are not coming back. So I was reading an article that the 40% of the security posts are shortage in Hyderabad. So that's one of the major challenge what we are facing. And similarly, if you go anywhere, you look at diversity, people shortage, security, people shortage. So that's the challenge what we are facing post pandemic. So it's related to this.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So that's another example of sort of a situation that we are facing. I think you'll have to give a few minutes just sort this thing out. Anybody in the meanwhile? Anybody else?
Yeah, Ramesh. Actually, I had commercial infrastructure for Techmahindra, and what we have been facing is getting the right price, the current seller market and all, the current pandemic. So it's becoming difficult to source it within the budget. That's one of the major challenges.
Yeah.
And I also have the physical infrastructure for Techmahindra, and what Anna mentioned that getting the manpower.
Yeah.
Okay, so all projects are getting delayed, whatever actually you plan. So despite of planning and all, so we are not able to execute because of all those constraints.
Absolutely. So you just imagine just one factor, a simple virus, the amount of chaos it has created. The amount it has unsettled all of us. So you can imagine when multiple factors like that are happening around us, how for as a business continuity manager, as a facility head, how would you run your business operations? And as we see in future, it's not only the pandemic. So thank you.
Yeah. So one I have. So another challenge which you are facing, all of us facing it. I had Honeywell. Set operations. So one is that again is coming to that skill level. Cafeterias is another issue.
Yeah.
Great issue. And it would have been all the employees are coming into would have faced a big challenge getting the cafeteria operations. Specifically the teacher who is operating the people coming back from their homes as a challenge. Challenge number 2. So if you are in the projects, right, microprocessor is a great problem. Wherever we go, we order for the UPS or we order for the air conditioners. They are clearly saying that delivery is 6 weeks, 12 weeks. They are rapid processor is also coming. It's a huge going to come issue for us.
Thank you for that. So, complexity can be tackled with clarity and ambiguity with agility. So these are some of the ways in which you can tackle the situation. Now, one of the things that I wanted to speak about was this, our resistance to change. Any problem you would always find that finding solution becomes easy only when you have got an open mind and you are able to think through. And most of the strategies that I just put you through, even there, it is the ability of a leader to think clearly, give a vision, have a vision, think clearly, and work with his team. And have a very open approach to the problem. Only then you will find solution. And here, unfortunately, we have got the set-piece mentality and everything has got a set order. We find ourselves in some of the processes that we are not at all open. We go by a textbook kind of a thing. We got a template mentality and we don't look outside the template. So in this kind of a scenario, nothing works. Because none of your process documents would have ever told you how to handle a virus in this kind of a situation. And that is where we floundered. Because there was no solution available in any of our process documents. And that is what is going to happen in future also. Because this is not the only thing that is going to impact you. There will be a lot more such things that would happen. So if you don't have, if your textbook doesn't give you an answer as a leader, how do you think through that? So that is going to define how you are able to handle the future. Especially to all my young friends who are sitting behind there, you have to be very agile in your thinking. And that is the way you will be able to give solutions that nothing exists. And these are some of the questions you can ask when you are faced with various kinds of scenarios in a polite, different kind of scenarios that I had spoken about. In each of those scenarios, there are some things that you can really, ask these questions, because these questions, when you start answering these questions, maybe some sort of a solution, some sort of a thing, some idea it might trigger where you might be able to see how you can give a leadership, a part to your team to, survive through that kind of crisis. And I'm sure most of you are aware of the Buddha loop that is there. So even in this kind of a scenario, the first thing is that you can't immediately find a solution to a problem. You have to observe it. You have to study it very clearly, and you have to orient yourself to this. And once you orient yourself, then comes the next stage where you have to decide on a course of action. And that is where you have to be very open as a leader. Most often what happens, that the leader just could have decided something and he just tells the team what to do. But in this kind of a scenario, you as a leader, your experience you might be found wanting, because this is a very unique kind of situation. Maybe it is a junior-most member in your team who might come out with something innovative, a brilliant solution to that problem. And that is why leaders have to really, before taking that step, you have to be more consultative as a leader, you have to be very open, you have to be willing to discuss, you have to be willing to listen. And the listening to your team, being able to, involve everybody and have a participatory leadership will really help you in this kind of a scenario. You just don't know. A solution which might look very offbeat might really work in such a time. Now, before I come to this, I had asked you, what are the challenges. Now, we have spoken about only when I asked you this question, most of the answers were around the pandemic. Because you see how your mind gets clouded by your past, experiences. Because your most recent experience in memory is only the pandemic. And that is where in a VUCA world, that is not what is going to happen. Your next event is not going to be a pandemic. Your next event is going to be something you are totally unprepared for. So that is where I would like you to apply yourselves a little beyond. Just go beyond the pandemic and try to think as to what all are the other things that can really happen around you. What all are the major things that are happening around you that could be. I have just put through a few things here, but that is not the end. I would like each one of you to think and prepare, because it is your ability to think through that really helps. So if you see here, the next slide, I have tried to put some things the way I feel. The first thing is, black swan incidents. When the 9/11 happened, nobody was prepared for it. Although it was a very simple thing, anybody even earlier in history also could have done that. And why it is called black swan, I'm sure all of you, some of you would have read the book also, which has become very famous. And this talks about a scenario where you really, your perception is clouded by your experience of what you see around you. Because people till then had seen only white swan. And the idea about something being a bird which is normally associated with white being black was, nobody could imagine that. And it only required some people who were on an expedition to see the same bird in a black color, then people realized that yes, it can be, it is not only white, it can also be black. And that's what happens in real life. Even when the Twin Towers thing happened, people were just not prepared. Why people were not prepared? Because people had never expected such a thing to happen. Because in the textbook it was not written. And people were not prepared for that. The second thing I have mentioned, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, big data. These things are going to be the next disruptive thing. Until and unless you are prepared for those kinds of technology changes, you will again find yourself wanting, because it is going to change the very way you work. Now today you are already seeing the sort of job losses that are happening around us. There is a book I would recommend. It is written by a gentleman called Menon. I don't remember his full name, but it is about what you will do when machines start doing everything. So what you will do? You will become so irrelevant. You will not have a job left. You really think about a scenario maybe 25 or 30 years from today, when all these things happen, how many of the current jobs would be there? So that itself is going to really turn the world upside down. What about your education? What about your children? What are you preparing them for? Which sort of a world you are preparing them for? And maybe after investing so much in all those things, maybe the person doesn't get a job. So you have to think about that also. The next is technology of obsolescence. I would like to talk briefly about. Now today we all are thinking about fossil fuels are getting over, so we are talking about EV charging and all those things. The government has also come out with a sort of a instruction that some percentage of your parking has to be provisioned with that kind of thing. On the other hand, you are finding that the EV technology itself has not evolved so much here, where there are a lot of fire incidents and all those things happening. Now you are trying to solve one problem, you are creating a bigger problem, or your building might be exposed to a huge risk, fire risk, when you are going and putting all those kind of things in place. The other thing is, you also understand that whatever we are talking about as an environment-friendly option is not really an environment-friendly option. The amount of pollution that is created in making all those batteries itself is going to create a lot of problems. On top of that, we also hear that maybe it is a very short-term kind of technology. After another maybe 8 or 10 years, you might not have these electric vehicles at all. You might move ahead and go to hydrogen fuel or something like that. And even India is betting higher on hydrogen fuel than on EV technology. So you go and buy a fancy car from Tesla, and you find that you will not have a place to dump it, because there would be so many of those cars, and there will be no place to dump it. So those are the kind of disruptive things that you have to think about when you think about the future. And next is environmental issues. Now that's again going to the next big disaster is going to be because of environmental disaster. And that is where in US and all this, the ESG compliance part of it is being taken very seriously. I'm sure most of your companies also, this terminology ESG has come very much into the thing. Environment and social governance, that is there. Most of you are conducting audits and all those things in that area. You are preparing your organization to be a greener organization. And that is again something which is going to change the way your facilities are geared up. The sort of way in which now today we have got a large number of captive power in our facilities. Your DG says, what do you do when there is no diesel? What are you going to do with all the diesel? What is your alternate power? Now green power. In a state like Telangana, the government itself is not very much proactive as far as green power is concerned. Very difficult to get, the necessary approvals to go for that. So those are the kind of challenges that might come in video in the future. And coming on to social media now, this again is something I feel definitely that until and unless you have got certain policies and all those things and you think deeply about it, this is again going to create, you have already seen how in the world, how fast information transmits and the sort of reputational risk that can happen when something that is not supposed to go to a public domain, if it goes, maybe your entire business can get compromised because of that. Next is the refinement. I mean, this is something, a little bit of a different thing that I am thinking about that, as our workplaces are evolving, diversity, inclusion, all those things are coming into the workplace. Are we prepared to accept that kind of a culture? The model change, the younger generation, the way we are thinking. Maybe our generation has to really change itself. Maybe our HR policies, everything will have to be revised. When you think about a workplace where, people with different sexual modes and different, ways of looking at all these things, because we are typically in an environment where we are only thinking about a male versus a female, but there are a lot of other things that are happening. And finally, this thing about white collar crime, I'm sure all of you are aware of that, but then again, I feel that especially in a kind of a hybrid kind of an environment, it also opens up very different kind of risk for organizations. You don't know your guy because when he is in the office, at least you've got some way of trying to see what he is up to. But you have got an employee who has joined you, he is using your company assets, and what is he using it for? Ultimately, what is the reputational risk and what is the compliance risk that you face when your assets are being used from a remote location and maybe to you for a crime or for a terrorist act? I just thought about some random things, but I'm sure that all of you, when you start thinking of a little bit more deeper, you'll find a lot of such areas where the world will always throw some surprises, and in the future it's not only going to be more and more chaotic. We have to be prepared for it like that. So I'm just ending it with a few. I know the first person is not a very, it's not the current political flavor, but then Mr. Gautam Adani has also told that business is all about taking risks and managing uncertainties and problems. And the second one, that it is, Yuka is more than a buzzword. It's a way of thinking and approaching solutions to problems you are digital and managing. Third one is what I want to leave for you, most of you as leaders, as budding leaders or established leaders in the industry, that your concept of leadership itself has to undergo a transformation. Because there is no longer a heroic manager who will give all the solutions. Perhaps the solutions will come from below you. And that is the kind of a leadership that you need to cultivate, you need to encourage, so that your leaders who are below you are able to adapt to the changing world. Thank you.